Hey guys, this is Forsaken Reality here with the 18th episode of the RPG tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to be setting up a combat component. With this component, we're going to take all of our everything to do with combat and put it within this. And it's also going to be set up so that it's not just for our character, we'll also be able to attach this to AI. Currently, our character component has references to the master character specifically. We're actually going to set up a combat interface, which is a good idea since we created an interface in the last episode. We'll create an interface in this episode, and we'll get you used to using them. We'll use this one a little bit differently. We'll be sending data for our character reference, which will be a reference for the main character class, so that we'll be able to send AI or players into this combat component and do things depending on that. And it will also set up a reference to send our held item into the component. We'll also be fixing up a few bugs, such as when we jump, I noticed that when you're sprinting and you jump, it doesn't stop sprinting. That's an easy fix, and I'll show you how to do that. As well, I don't know if you noticed in the last video, but you might be able to hit AI from weird positions and stuff. That was because on the widget I accidentally ticked it to world space just so I could see it visible on the screen and set it up, but I forgot to set it back to screen space. Once you set it to screen space, you won't be able to hit it from random positions in the world. It won't look like you're hitting multiple AI at once. So without further ado, we'll get into this video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is fix up those few bugs. So we want to go to our blueprints, AI, and our master AI. And here you want to go to your health bar. And just over here on the space, you want to turn on screen space. Now you'll notice the health bar only displays when you're in the game. And you won't start smacking the AI over there randomly unless you actually hit them. So now that's that one. We'll fix the jump. This is the issue with the jump right now. You're sprinting and it doesn't go into the jump. So we'll fix that by opening up our animation blueprint. So we want to go into animations, master anim BP. And in here we want to go to our anim graph. And just going to comment this main locomotion pose. And final or output pose. And move this down a little. I want to comment this whole thing. Directional. Yeah. Directional aiming is good enough for now. And I'll select these two and untick the bubble. So we don't like the bubble. Set that up like that. So it's a little more organized. Now we're going here. And the run isn't connected to the jump, so there's no way for the run to actually get there. So you want to just drag off the run, plug it into jump start. And you'll notice that when the idle walk goes into there, it checks for if we're in air. So I want to check for this variable when we're jumping, when we're running. So let's just right here. I'm just simply plug that in, file and save. And now we'll be able to run and jump. So that's those two bugs fixed. Now we will begin setting up the combat components. So we want to go into our blueprints folder, components, And we'll create a new component called, so I have blueprint or blueprint right here. Actor component, VPC underscore combat component. And the reason we're making this is because in our character component, we have a reference set to our master character, so we can't use this on AI. There's several moments in here that we're referencing our master character to get do different things, so it'll just make it a pain. We'd end up, rather than making a whole other one that we have to work with, we'll make a universal one that we can use between both. It'll be this one. So in here, we have our combat component. We're gonna need 2 references so far. So we'll create one called character ref. And this will be a reference to the main character class. Not your master character, the one above that, and the one above your AI. So we can send that information in through there. And holdable. I'm going to change this to held item. So our holdable master holdable is when is a held item, basically. That's not too confusing to me, at least. If it is, you can just put holdable ref. I'm going to our character. Just change this holdable ref to held item. So that's the item that we're holding. And when you click on it, you can see that's the master holdable, and children of. That'll change to the held item, the holdable mesh right there. Right there. So that's all set up now with that quick change. And we have the held item and the character reference set in here. Now we need another interface. So I want to go to our interfaces folder and scroll down to blueprints and blueprint interface. BPI combat interface. And in here, we're just going to create a couple of simple functions. And one's going to be set character. And one's going to be set held item. I'm just going to keep it holdable. Set holdable. Actually, I'm going to held item set held item. So we always know that the held item is a reference to our master holdable. And the reason I don't change this is because I just don't think it would look good with master held item. It would just be too much. Too many different spaces. And held item. And for the character, search for character, set the reference to the main character. Now this will be a character reference. Compile and save that. And head back to our combat component. And in our class settings, we want to add an interface, and it's going to be our combat interface. That'll add 2 new functions over here that we can't access like this, but we can delete these and type in set character. Oop, not this one though. Set character. I want the event. and set held item, because this is where messages are sent to when we make a call. So for example, when we create the character, we're going to set the reference there to the character depending on where the component is attached. I'll show you that more once we get into it. So you want to drag this and set character reference. And it's just a character, so depending on if the AI is setting if this combat component is connected to the AI specifically, it will send it to the AI, the information for the AI in here. And if it's connected to a character, it'll send the character's information. You want to do the same thing for the held item. And just to show that it works, we're just gonna print string, get display name. Okay, now for this to work with our character, we simply, to allow us to access anything, once we have things, we're going to start filling out our combat component with everything to do with combat. Once we have that set up, we can go to our character and our event graph, which will be over here, and on begin play, we're going to drag this out a little bit more. First, we're going to add a component, combat component. File and save. Then we're going to drag this out. And we're going to set character. And that's going to be a message. Or a set character. Yeah, we're gonna do a message here. Set character. It's gonna be an interface message. And the character reference is just a reference to self. So the actor this is attached to, the instance of it. So each character will have their own combat component. And we'll set that there. Sends a reference to for the character to the combat component. So this will get the character, and when the game begins and the character is loaded and then begin play runs, then basically this runs and sends a reference for this master character or any child that's active to the combat component, and that'll send it, and it'll set the character reference to that character is the plan. Just gonna organize this a little bit. Just to test that out, I have the print string in here, so it should give me the character name for every active character in the scene, and we'll make 2. So master character 1, and it says it on both server and client. So now we know that that works. We're going to do the same thing for our weapon, but not on begin play. We get our held item reference for our master holdable when we equip the weapon. So you want to go to your input graph and your master character and go over to your pickup. And after you set your reference for your held item right here. You want to drag out and make some room. And from here you want to get your combat component. Set hold held item. And this is going to be a message as well. So it'll send a message to the combat component through the interface. And we want to reference our held item. Send a reference for the held item, just so you know, to the combat component. So this will call this interface and it will send a message through, and it will get the event set item, held item, and it will set it to the master holdable to whatever item is being held. So when we pick up our item, that's our character is being set. When we pick up item, it should set on the server and client. And it's a sword because that's what we picked up. And an axe. There we go. So that's the beginning of our combat interface. And we will set it up in our AI as well. Combat component. This will be universally used between both. Save us from having to recreate a whole bunch of stuff. And we'll get the combat interface in the class settings interfaces. Actually, you want to delete, if you added that, delete it and then click no. We don't actually need that in there. I've added it over here. I don't think I did. Nope. Okay, sorry about that. We don't need that. We want to get our combat component. And when we are going to set this is on begin play. So we're going to update the health widget. We're going to drag this over some. This here. And we're going to drag out to this and set character. It's going to be a message. So this will send the message to the combat component. Set a reference for this character. Because I keep saying it, but hopefully it'll help you understand a little more. This is a reference to the character class. So it is a character. So once it sends in here, it'll do the interface call and play this event, set the AI. And it sets for each individual instance, so every AI, every player has their own combat components. So you can see it spamming 1 and 2. It's creating the combat components and setting the data for all of them. And we forgot to reconnect the update health widget. Reconnect that. Got everything reconnected in here. Yep. Okay, so that's that. Combat component isn't actually doing anything yet. We just have it set up for now. That's going to be it for this video. In the next video, we are going to continue setting up the combat component, which shouldn't take too much longer. We just have to move some stuff from the character component to the combat component, and we'll probably move a few things from the master character to the combat component. depending on if we'll need to use it for the AI or not. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below or join my Discord. If you have any suggestions as well, you can do the same. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.